fiction. Mostly.
Greetings and welcome to Mostly Science and Fiction, a podcast about science fiction. Mostly. I am the infamous Jakob Man, and with me today is my arch nemesis, the mighty Fadzy.
Good day. When did we become nemesis?
Well, it's only because we were doing a superhero thing, so I thought, like, I'm Jakob Man, you're Mighty Fads, and anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, that works.
By now, I'm sure you've heard, as I know you have because we've talked about it, that the legendary comic book writer and editor, publisher, Stan Lee, has fucking died.
Rest in peace.
95. That's not
Good
bad.
innings.
It is. I mean, to me, that's like
Old.
heaps above the national average. Yeah, it's quite old, but it's also, I think, in Australia, the average life expectancy of an Australian male, some say some of the not coolest males, some say, 81.
81?
81 to 83.
That's... I don't know whether that's lower or higher than what I was expecting. Or maybe it's about on the money. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I hadn't really thought about it. But then, I mean, you don't really want to think about your own death, do you? That's...
No. It's not pleasant.
No.
So today, I thought we'd do a bit of a tribute to the life and creations of the legendary Stan. Stan. But before we kick off, it's tradition around here at Mostly Science and Fiction, as you know, Fadzy,
I do.
to start with a fun fact or piece of trivia. You got anything up your sleeve there, mate?
Yes, I do actually. Keeping with the Stan Lee theme, and even though this isn't actually one of Stan Lee's characters, he is a Marvel character, and I'm talking, of course, about the one and only Deadpool. Love the movies.
Yes.
Now, it's probably a well-known fact amongst Deadpool fans, so apologies in advance if this is old news to some. However, Deadpool, as you know, is a fairly interesting character. I think we can all agree on that. However, has anyone ever actually considered the concept of his sexuality? The creator of Deadpool... Yeah, you have?
No, me. You said anyone. I mean, I was saying... I'm sure someone has. You said anyone.
Well, yeah, I was probably...
Well, he's a little bit ambiguous because he does sort of... even in the movies... You know, he gets a bit touchy with some of the dudes.
Well, here's the interesting thing. The creator of Deadpool, I forget his name, has actually come out and said, or confirmed rather, that Deadpool is in fact pansexual. And for those of you who don't know, pansexuality is...
How do you not know?
How do you not know? Pansexuality is effectively, it's neither heterosexual or homosexual. It is basically you find everything attractive. So you're literally sexually attractive to anything. You don't see the difference, you know, male, female, animal, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's my fun fact. Deadpool, pansexual.
So Deadpool he's just constantly
sticking his dick in everything. Yes.
Yeah, right. Well, that's Rob Liefeld for you, the creator of Deadpool.
There you go. I think that actually kind of works with the character when you think about it.
Well, yeah, he's quite eccentric.
Say what you like about Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. He's good, isn't he?
Oh, I think he works for the character, definitely.
Yeah, I like him. So, instead of a fun fact today, I didn't think of one, but I do have a fun quote to kick off today's episode. So, this is a quote from Stan Lee, and it's a sentiment that I share very much so. And here's how it goes.
If you're about to tell me that with great power comes great responsibility.
Damn it, do you know that one?
I'm familiar with it.
Oh, right. Okay, let me just think of another one off the top of my head.
Actually?
Yeah, here's one off the top of my head.
Okay.
My theory about why people like superheroes is that when we were kids, we all loved to read fairy tales. Fairy tales are all about bigger things than life. Giants, witches, trolls, dinosaurs and dragons, and all sorts of imaginative things. Then you get a bit older and you stop reading fairy tales, but you don't ever outgrow your love of them.
That is beautiful.
So that's a quote from Stan Lee, and I apply that sentiment to sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, to me, it's more like, I understand that, but I'm not such a superhero guy as I am more about a sci-fi guy. Obviously, that's what this podcast is all about. But I get what he's saying. It's like I'm a daydreamer.
Yeah.
You know, I live a good life. I'm not fantasizing about a better life, but I do love to fantasize. Like every time I'm sitting up there looking at the night sky or whatever, I'm like, man, spaceships and shit. It's like, brr.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a nice little quote, and that's what this podcast is all about. It's like we're talking about fantasies, aren't we?
Well, indeed, and I'll be honest, I'm very much along the same line of thinking you are. Superheroes, I'd class that as science fiction. I mean, let's be honest, it does fall loosely in that category, whether
Sure.
it's a subcategory of the master category, if you like. But I mean, it does remind me of a little saying that I live by, and that is, let me just make sure I get this right in my head before I make a fool out of myself. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Oh no, yeah, I have heard that before. But actually, just so you know, on a much older episode, like way back in 2014 or whenever I first sort of kicked this thing off, we actually did an episode on what is or what does and does not constitute as a sci-fi, and superheroes easily fall into that category, but I would always say it's superheroes first, sci-fi second. But then you've got like Guardians of the Galaxy. You wouldn't really call that a superhero movie as much as a sci-fi. That's way more sci-fi than superhero, you know what I mean?
Do you know, I won't dive into that too much because that's not what we're talking about today. However, I do have a few counterpoints. I mean, I would argue that not every superhero or super villain, for that matter, would fall under the science fiction category vis-a-vis,
No, absolutely not.
Let's say, the Batman, for example, off the top of my head.
Totally, yeah.
But then again, Superman.
Exactly. So but then again, Superman is an alien, but you don't think of Superman at all as sci-fi as much as you go, he is literally the embodiment of a superhero, you know?
We can at least agree that they're interconnected. And just are. Oh, absolutely. But
some are more than others. Like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy would be sci-fi first, superhero second. It's spaceships, it's aliens, like they're heroes, but every sci-fi has a hero in it. I mean, you could say Captain Picard is a hero and Han Solo is a hero, but
Captain Picard is absolutely a hero.
Is he a superhero though? No. So
I think he's pretty super. In fact, he is because he is because, as we know, friggin' Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard, and Professor X. Hello.
Oh my God.
The circle becomes whole. I feel this is a somewhat appropriate time as we, maybe I might have missed my cue on this one, but screw you guys, I'm going to talk about it anyway. On the subject of reading comics and watching superheroes and enjoying superheroes, when you were a kid, obviously is when you get into it, and then leading into your adulthood, I think it's appropriate at this time to address some of the comments recently made by Bill Maher, which have
right.
Yeah, you tracking this?
Well, yeah, I've seen it. I haven't read them. I just saw it pop up all the time. I was like, I don't have time for this. So I don't know what he's actually said. I just know it's a thing.
Look, first of all, don't mind Bill Maher. Funny, makes me laugh. Good on him. Right. Yeah, he's all right. I'm not going to take him to the movies or anything, but no. I quote.
It's a bit of a dick.
I don't think it's a huge stretch to suggest that Donald Trump could only get elected in a country that thinks comic books are important.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
what a fuckwit.
I know. Now
I hate Bill Maher. Always have. That's what I said just earlier. Fuck.
Yeah. Look, I mean,
something off about him.
I get the point he's trying to make. I don't agree with it. And let's be honest, Bill Maher, he's a man that likes his controversy, and he's certainly getting it. But yeah, don't agree with that at all. I'm
not going to get into that. Let's fucking kick this fucking fucker off. What do you reckon?
I think that's a good idea.
All right, so Stan Lee. Let's fuck Bill Maher. Stan Lee is credited with creating or co-creating nearly 400 characters during his 80-year career, right? So we've decided here at Mostly Science and Fiction, as a bit of a tribute and a bit of a fun, I'll cut that, to talk about a few of his very best. So
you've been holding that in for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. But dude, here's the thing though. It's important to note that many of the most iconic characters credited to Stan Lee, such as like Spider-Man or Thor or the Hulk and many more, were actually co-creations with most notably people like Jack Kirby, who passed away in 1994, and like Steve Ditko, who also died this year but didn't make much of Russell. So like characters like Spider-Man and the Hulk and stuff, it wasn't just Stan Lee, but Stan Lee... Well, I mean, like, there's been lawsuits pertaining to credit and payment or lack thereof, and Stan Lee did have a reputation of stealing credit, be it intentional or not, but I don't want to speak ill of the dead or anything. I just want to geek out. But, like, I think it's important to recognize that some of these characters are not just Stan Lee's creations, like Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby. We must recognize their contributions. It doesn't diminish Stan Lee's contributions. The man, regardless of speculation, is a cultural legend, but I think it's important to recognize that it's not all him.
Yeah, yeah, and look, I mean, he was definitely one of the more. I mean, he was. Would it be fair to say that he was the face of Marvel? I
Yes,
mean, bearing
very much
he
so.
didn't, which is strange when you consider. Like, I think he retired from that company back in the 1990s, something like that. But remained an executive producer and cameoed in I don't know 11 dickety thousand movies.
Yeah, he did become the head. He did become the head, whatever. But I don't know. It's a very confusing company. They ran a lot of things around, but one of the
But it's not unusual just for that sort of company. I mean, if you look back to Disney, I mean, the amount of controversy over who the original creator of Mickey Mouse was.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a given, I think, in that sort of industry. Like when you're designing characters, that of course there's going to be input from different.
And Stanley never drew anybody. Like he's never been a cartoonist, despite going on certain TV programs where he's been introduced as a cartoonist, and he didn't walk out and be like, "No, I'm not." Like, so it's very interesting. Like, he's not.
If someone gives you a mantle and you don't disagree with it, yeah. But whatever. The man was a legend. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Despite all of that,
love your work.
Without it, we wouldn't have the characters we know today. You know what I mean?
Bloody oath. Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, some great characters. I mean, who doesn't love Spider-Man?
Exactly. I have like a whole stack of Spider-Man comics from when I was a kid, man. I just found them the other day. I've put it on my Instagram. It's fucking dope, dude. I love those.
Yeah,
I didn't want to take them out of the wrapper though, because like I put them in these little wrappers. Like when I was like 14 or 15, I was like, oh man, I'm going to high school, or whatever. I need to fucking wrap these up and store them somewhere. So they're still like in really good condition. I'm like, oh no, they're probably only worth $2 though.
No, well, I was a bit like that with Star Wars characters. Characters, action figures. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. All right. So favorite character? What do you got? Or character?
A character that I enjoyed. I don't know. Favorite. That is a strong word.
Yeah, I don't have a favorite. But
do you know what? I'm not going to say something original like Iron Man or Spider-Man, but the character that I get the most amount of enjoyment from, at least consistently, J. Jonah Jameson.
Totally, dude.
I need photos of Spider-Man.
So what?
Come on.
Okay, and because we were just, I'm just thinking it because usually we try to make our characters fight. I'm wondering, like,
well, there's no contest here. There's no point. J. Jonah would obviously win.
How would he win? Against anyone?
Against anyone. Professor X, the Juggernaut, doesn't matter. They're going down. J. Jonah's got him. Do you know why? Because he has the power of the press on his side.
Oh man, I don't know.
I mean, plus, he's got a military background.
Does he?
Yeah, he's a very influential member of the...
So how is influence going to win in a fist fight, dude?
Well, I mean, I suppose it depends on the context of the fight. I mean, he looks like he can handle himself, and not that he has any mutant powers or superhero powers or realistically any power aside from the press to speak of. I mean... Let's be honest, you don't want to mess with the press. I mean, that's toppled governments, dude.
And what did you think of J.K. Simmons' performance in the original Spider-Man 1?
Oh, come on, it was flawless. Like
exactly how I felt. He's
exactly.
Yeah, sorry, keep going. I was saying like
no, that was J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah,
like anyone who's watched the Amazing Spider-Man, the original like the original, I say the original cartoons, like the cartoon series that I think most people in their early 30s, late 20s grew up with.
Totally.
Yeah, that it was flawless. You can't knock it.
So I read the Amazing Spider-Man comics, man, and like he even looks the same.
I know. It's
like it's crazy.
And credit to that guy. Like that sort of role, you think you get typecast in that sort of thing because he did do such a good job. And I see him in other movies now, and I kind of think, just do J. Jonah. But
yeah,
there it is.
See, he was also in Command and Conquer. Tiberian Wars, I think.
Oh, you're right, he was.
Or was it the Red Alert that came out at the same time? I think it was Tiberian Wars. Man, that game was so fucking dope, dude.
Yeah. Do you know what? I haven't played those in decades. Oh, well, I know what I'm going to do after this.
Oh, man, that's all I want to do right now. Okay, I got a guy for you. I'll fight your... Okay, so we'll make it like it's a poker game, okay? So you've just bet at J. Jonah Jameson, right? I'm going to throw in Asbestos Man. Now, I just put a video out about this recently, but Asbestos Man was created by Stan Lee to fight the Fantastic Four in the 1960s. He's half man, all man, but he also has a superhuman ability to analyze chemistry.
Right.
Yeah.
Asbestos Man.
He's amazing. So apparently he's super smart with like science and shit, right? But for some reason he like really sucks at crime. So he tries to attract a bunch of gangsters to teach him the ways of crime. And he walks up to these gangsters, right? And he's like, this is a 1960s comic. And he walks up to these gangsters. He's like, hello there. Can you teach me gangstering and bank robbing? And they're like, get out of here. I'll fucking shoot you in your dick, you fucking idiot. So like, he decides that the only way for gangsters to come to him is if he can defeat a superhero. And this is based around the Fantastic Four. It's like a Fantastic Four comic. So he tries to fight the Human Torch because he witnesses the Human Torch catching some bank robbers earlier in the comic. So if he can beat the Human Torch, who beats bank robbers, the bank robbers will come to him for protection, teach him how to rob a bank, and he can rob a bank for whatever reason. Like, there's no reason why he wants to do this. Like, he's a genius, apparently. But how can he beat the Human Torch, who turns into fire? So he develops this new chemical. Remember, he's the world's foremost chemical analyst or whatever. So he fucking creates a super suit out of asbestos, right?
Ah, I was wondering where the asbestos would come into this.
So he creates a super suit, a shield, and the most important weapon when catching a man who can turn himself into fire is, of course, a net made out of asbestos, apparently. So he's got a shield and a net, right? Anyway, somehow he wins. Like, he catches the fireballs and fires them back at him, and somehow that kills him. So he defeats fucking the Human Torch with a suit made out of asbestos. He literally turns back into a man, like takes his suit off. All the gangsters come out and help him rob a bank. But anyway, while they're robbing the bank, the Human Torch comes in and sucks all the air out, and then he gives up. And then, like, 3 years later, he dies of cancer.
Yeah, I was gonna...
I'm not even joking.
Oh, no, you know, I was going to make a joke about that.
Yeah.
But now I feel like it would be in bad taste if that's what actually happened to him.
Yeah, so in the comic books, he gets defeated, and it's just like a short story comic. And then he's like, oh, no, like, a man who makes a suit out of asbestos. But then in a later edition, Did
you say this was a 1960s superhero?
Yeah. But he didn't...
So did they know that asbestos was bad for you back in the 1960s, or was this just unrelated asbestos cancer?
There's a lot of controversy about that character, so they don't know if at the time they were trying to be like futurists and make a political statement. Like, maybe the general public didn't know, but a few smarties did. But at the time, you don't have that sort of, mass communication and social media we do now. Fake news, real news. But
that's huge.
Later, obviously, they didn't know because they never said he got cancer. He just
mysteriously disappeared of some unknown
illness. And then a
illness.
few years later, like, no, that's not at all. So at the end of the story, he was a one-off character, right? At the end of the story, he just surrendered and went to prison or whatever. But then, in later editions, it looks like 90s editions maybe, he's back and he's got a gas mask and he's like, I'm a cancer survivor and blah blah blah, and he's like talking about how he survived cancer, and then he disappeared again because he's such a shitty minor character. And
it was Mr. Asbestos. I don't see him getting his own film anytime soon.
Yeah, and then
Asbestos Man.
Yeah, that's his name, Asbestos Man. And then a few years later, they made another comment like, what happened to Asbestos Man or something. It's like a one-off comment, and the Human Torch says, I think he died. So there's been his life in the comics consists of 3 parts. The first part is he builds a suit out of asbestos and then loses a fight, funnily enough. The second one is he's walking around with a bunch of thugs but doesn't get anything done because he's carrying a gas bottle and a mask, an oxygen bottle and a mask because he's a lung cancer
survivor. Spent too much time around asbestos.
Yep. And then the third mention of him, when we never see him again after that, the third mention is the Human Torch says that he died of cancer.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, man. It's a pretty cool story.
That is a pretty cool. It's
weird. That's in a comic.
For a character named Asbestos Man, that is. There's a lot of hidden political statements in there, and I dig that. That's cool. I mean, particularly, from the 1960s, and, who would have thought?
Yeah.
That, like, fast forward however many years, and asbestos is very, very bad. I mean, I don't think anyone maybe using it as a weapon because, wow, that's cold, but actually making armor out of it.
Yeah.
And particularly because this guy, as you said, was supposed to be a super genius.
Yeah.
A schoolyard kid will tell you that that's a bad idea these days.
Absolutely. I just sent you a photo. Check out that photo. Have a look at that. That's Asbestos Man.
The Asbestos Man.
Okay, so everything he's wearing right now, blue mask, pink shirt, like a biohazard suit, the shield and the net are all made out of not just asbestos, but a new kind of asbestos that he just developed that he's called
pink asbestos.
Super asbestos. Of course, it's super asbestos.
1960s comments are great.
Yeah, when Stan Lee passed, man, I just started like hoeing into all these old comics, and I'd go back to because the weirdest characters are in the ones that are like the editions, like Strange Tales or whatever, and there's like 5 different mini stories within them. They always had these obscure characters. Then I went like, oh man, Stan Lee's made a lot of shit. So I went onto Wikipedia or whatever and typed in Stan Lee characters. I just Googled it, and then it came up with a list, and I was scrolling through the list, and Asbestos Man was there, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and why wouldn't you click on that?
Gonna...
And just honest, anyone listening that has never heard of the Asbestos Man, like me, I strongly give that a Google.
Yeah, well, he's powerful enough, at least before he got cancer and died a horrible slow death, he was powerful enough to defeat the Human Torch, at least. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, well, it's respectable, but is he powerful enough to defeat Joe Jamer?
Because Joe Jamer would just walk up there and punch him out.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
He's got no fighting skills. All he can do is not burn. In fact, the Human Torch could have just not fired fireballs at him and just walked over there and just kicked him square in the nuts. And he would just be like,
yeah, but that's not the Human Torch's style. That is most definitely Jay Jonah's style. And, you know, I granted he's got a shield and a net, and, you know, he could probably throw his asbestos net over him, and he'd just be like, what are you doing? Get me photos. Photos of Asbestos Man.
It's Asbestos Man playing the long game, though, and then Joe Jamerson dies of fucking cancer 20 years later, and they're both in hospital beds next to each other. It's like, haha.
Well, you know, Jay Jonah could die 20 years later. Asbestos Man only lasted 3.
Also, well, technically, he didn't die till, like, you know, in the 90s. But in comic book time doesn't, you know, it's not the same, is it? He was already like 50 when
Is there an equation? Is there an equation for that? Like, you know, real time to comic book time and the other way around? I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's lots, because different comic book sagas are set in different times. They had, you know what I mean? All different universes, whatever.
Oh, yeah. It gets a bit weird after a while. I mean, Captain America, if that's one thing it's told us, is that time knows no limits when you're a super soldier.
That's true. All right, what do you got,
Speaking of which, my next character.
And
I'm going segueing a little more mainstream with this one, but who cares? He's cool. The Punisher.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Punisher, let's be honest, cool backstory. Awesome freaking, whatchamacallit? Modus operandi.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a dude who literally has, I won't say bipolar disorder, but someone who used to be an everyday, we'll say person, obviously works in law enforcement and all that sort of jazz, has everything taken away from him when his family's killed, and then is reborn effectively in the fires of his own grief and becomes the Punisher. And as you know, there's been many, many different variations of the Punisher. I mean, obviously we've got the Punisher from the comic books. There's been, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 movie versions.
Yep. So you have the Punisher with Tom Jane, which was the 2002, 2004 maybe film, and John Travolta's in it.
Yeah.
And oh man, that was pretty dope. Then I think you had Punisher Warzone 2008 with Ray Stevenson, who I know from a few things. He was in Rome and also Black Sails. He played Blackbeard in Black Sails and a bunch of other stuff. And then you got the TV series, right?
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'll be honest, the John Travolta one, I mean, that's probably my favourite. I think that actually...
I think it is too, to be honest. And it's the least favourite of everyone else's.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, dude. Just like everyone was like, I don't know if Punisher Warzone, I don't know. They just really didn't like it. Everyone really... I don't know about the Netflix series with John Bernthal.
Yeah. No, well, that's not too bad. Yeah. But I didn't mind... Honestly, I didn't mind Warzone. But that original film...
I think Tom Jane's dope.
I think he did it. Yeah, he is, definitely. What else was he in? Jesus.
Well, for me...
Yeah, he was the guy from Deep Blue Sea. That's where I'm thinking of him from.
Tom Jane, yeah. But for me, he's more famous, for me, in the Expanse TV series, where he plays Detective Miller. I don't know if you ever got into that, man, but you should. If you haven't, you absolutely should, because it's amazing.
I absolutely will. I can't say I have, to be honest with you.
I've read all the books, man. It's fucking sick.
Yeah,
I really, really like this show. It's my new favorite.
I suppose I'm a bit nostalgic because that film was actually my first exposure to the Punisher, and you know, I remember watching it for the first time and thinking, "What is this? This is, you know, this is a movie," you know. And I just like the freaking concept of that character as well. Just, you know, freaking going from a man having everything at the top of his freaking game, bloody, you know, beautiful wife, kids, and everything, having all of that taken away from him, and then, you know, being reborn as that character. That's just crazy.
Yeah. It also has that amazing fight scene in the kitchen, man, when he's fighting that big Russian dude or whatever.
Oh, no, I love that
That's
bit.
great. Now, one thing about the TV series that really was annoying for me, like, I really like John Bernthal because I like The Walking Dead. I'm a big Walking Dead fan. But
Oh, massive.
how many times do you get shot and can shrug it off? I mean, I get like he's really tough, and if it was like the final scene and he got shot and then just had like one last act of like coolness, but then the next day he's like running up flights of stairs after being shot in the leg and stuff like this. It looked like the damage was so minimal.
Yeah, and
He got shot too, and it wasn't enough time to heal. You know,
and it's not like you can use the "because I'm Batman" excuse, because that only works for, well, Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, bearing in mind we're in superhero world as well, where the good guys always
But he
win.
doesn't have superpowers, though. So he's just a dude.
Doesn't matter. It's all in the universe. There must be something in the air.
I don't know, man. that to me, that element of the TV series kind of like made like, if you just. It would have been okay if it was like 3 weeks later, and then I'd be like, he's fucking tough. But if it's just like the same night after being shot 5 times, he can like fall down a flight of stairs and he's not bleeding. Like, I just don't believe it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on where exactly you got shot as well. I mean,
I don't know.
wasn't it like in the quad or something?
Depends. He got shot a whole bunch of times in that TV series. That's what I was saying. It wasn't a one-off. He was fucking Swiss cheese, dude.
Yeah, well.
I'm just like,
Did you,
but I'll see your Punisher, dude, and I'll absolutely slaughter him
okay.
with Man-Thing.
You've got all the cool ones.
Do you know of Man-Thing, dude? Man-Thing, co-created by Stan
Let me
Lee.
just get my.
Do you know?
Well, let me just get my mind out of the gutter, and yeah, crack on.
Man-Thing, dude, he's actually the fucking sickest character. Remember I texted you the other day and I was like, dude, I'm reading comic books today. I was like, it was all Man-Thing comic books.
Right.
Man-Thing was co-created by Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, and Jerry Conway.
Okay.
With artist Graham Morrow. I just thought I'd mention that.
Sure.
But he first appeared in Savage Tales. That was one of those, I don't know what you call them, like collab. Not collab. What's the thing I'm thinking of? Like
A cross-universe thing.
No,
A
like
collaboration of.
a collection of short stories.
Ah.
An anthology.
Yeah, like a smorgasbord of characters.
So you'd buy a Savage Tales and you'd get like 5 short comics in one sort of thing.
Oh yeah. No, I think I know what you're talking about.
And that's where Asbestos Man was from. Not Savage Tales, but one of those type things. It was just like a special they'd put out everyone. So anyway, it was 1971 was when he was first appeared. And in these old short story comics, they had cool little behind the scenes bits.
Yeah.
And they would address these new characters because it's also a way for them to introduce characters to see if people would like them, I presume, to sort of before you're not going to start a whole new comic like Conan the Barbarian or Spider-Man or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like a proving grounds almost.
Well, yeah, like, and that's the way, like in Action Heroes comics or whatever, Action Comics, whatever it's called, where the first appearance of Superman was. Like the first Superman didn't appear in his own series straight away. He appeared in like an anthology or whatever you want to call it, a collection of them, and then they're like, hey, he's fucking popular. We'll give him his own comic book or whatever. That's when Man-Thing started. So anyway, they had these little behind the scenes bits, and sometimes they'd do lots of advertisements, but they'd also be like, hey, here's a little bit of what they had to say.
Yeah.
And in this one, they had a small sort of blurb that was going to introduce the next 4 stories. So you read a short story, then they had a popular character, then they were like, coming up, and they had this one. And here's a short preface before reading the very first Man-Thing. I thought this was pretty cool, so I'll read it to you guys. Just one warning. In case you're scanning this before you plunge into the actual story, don't read it in bed unless nightmares turn you on.
That is intriguing.
That's what you read before if you want to read the Man-Thing comic. How fucking weird is that? It's like a kid's comic book, dude. Actually, I think what did I call? Fuck, dude, I lost my words here.
Well, do you know what? Just say that again in that voice, and I'll enjoy it.
Good, dude. So yeah, in Savage Tales. I think Savage Tales was actually M-rated or whatever. So it was more of like a teenage comic book.
I see.
So Man-Thing was formerly Dr. Theodore Ted Sallis. He injected himself with a toxic formula he designed on a military contract. Hey?
Well, yeah.
With the hope to create super soldiers from the army. In fact, it's the same formula that Captain America was injected with. He tried to recreate it.
Ah, that old chestnut.
And the reason in this first comic he got betrayed by some chick, like his woman, he's like, hey, and half her tits are hanging out. It's like really hypersexual. Anyway, she turns out to be the villain. They want to steal the formula, like by these mafia guys, and she was working for them the whole time because they want to create their own super soldiers, right?
They were Nazis.
But, yeah.
Oh, they were. That was a guess.
No, they weren't Nazis. They were just like classic 70s thugs, like the white striped, black and white striped shirt with like a little.
They're legit either going to be Nazis or Soviets.
No, these are. I don't know where these guys. Or in the 70s and 60s, a lot of comic book guys were doing Italian mafia. Like,
look, if she's got her tits out, she's got what I'm assuming is going to be short black cropped hair.
No. She was like a Gilligan's Island looking sort of babe, because they're in the swamp, you see. Because she had to go out to the swamp to meet these people. But due to her betrayal, he crashed. He drove off, and he's like, no one can get the formula. And they're like shooting at him with Tommy guns and stuff. So he injects the formula into his neck, and then he crashes into the water, into the swamp, and he starts feeling his muscles grow like Captain America. Like, this is his home formula. So he's getting stronger and stronger. But the swamp water mixed with the serum and caused gross mutations. So he became this like fucking deformed half tree, half like swamp pond scum fucking monster. And anyways, kills all the bad guys.
Yeah, so not the desired effect. Aside from the super strength, presumably.
Not quite. It was brutal, dude, because he gets out of the water and he's like, grabs one guy, just like rips him in half. And this is a 1971 comic too. He gets this other guy and like snaps him over his knee. But the whole time you're reading it, it's like from first person perspective. But once at first it's just a man. He's going, oh, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get it. You've betrayed me, my love. And he's driving this car down the road and he's like, no one can get this formula. I need to save the world. Why my heart's breaking, blah blah. And it's like really sort of dramatic, and I'm reading this like going, what the fuck? This is like 1971 comic book. It's actually really dark.
Yeah, right.
Then he crashes in the water, and his inner monologue changes, and it starts getting all surreal and like supernatural.
Oh, he starts receding into his swampy primeval.
Yeah.
At least I'm assuming.
I'll read it to you.
Go.
I'll read it. This is after him. This is him crashing into this is Man-Thing's first introduction. How long have you waited? How long have you languished in this swamp, in this hell of fetid darkness? How long have you listened to the night calls of singing cranes? How long have you watched the play of life and death, predator and victim? Watched until you can wait no longer? How long have you lived this nightmare here in the darkness? Lived it so long that you've almost forgotten once you were a man. But now even that memory fades to join the others which once gave you sanity. Now you do not even try to scream your frustration. Now as you struggle for breath and life, the last of your humanity leaves you and you become truly the Man-Thing.
Wow.
That's in a 1971 comic, dude, and I'm reading this shit going, I wasn't in 1971, I read this like a week ago. I was like, what the fuck, bro? I was freaking out, man.
Do you know what? Regardless of the context of any of that, you should just talk in that voice from now on.
Forever. He has appeared in 685. No, I'm not doing it. Okay.
That's epic. I mean, that is a whole lot of... That's a whole lot of emotion coming out of a character that came out of a swamp with the name The Man-Thing.
I know. And at the same time, it was like a sort of competition, I guess, with Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And sort of stuff like that. But the difference was Swamp Thing could talk and stuff. Man-Thing was just like driven by base emotions. But he's appeared in like 685 issues currently.
Yeah, right.
Like, he has been in that many different mentions since the 70s.
So he's actually fairly popular.
Yeah, he got weirdly popular after a while, which I'm not really sure why he got so popular, but I read some of the comics. Actually, yeah, maybe I get it, because like I really like him, dude. Well, so I've read like heaps of them now.
Just to educate my uneducated mind, was he a superhero or a supervillain? Because he doesn't sound like he sounds like a good guy who's had something very unfortunate happen to him, but at the same time, he sounds kind of gross appearing, which is generally not something. Well, it's generally not something you associate with a superhero, who are generally clean cut, chiseled physiques, nice to look at.
I guess he's like a lot of them. He's kind of like those characters that are like outcasts but good-hearted, like the Frankensteins and shit. But for him, he's really strange, because that's exactly right. Like, a lot of people have commented on him before, saying things like, how is he so popular when he doesn't actually talk anymore. Like that first introduction, that was it. After that, he became Man-Thing. You never hear him speak again.
Well, okay, presumably because he can't, because he's
until later
Swamp Thing.
issues.
Okay.
Well, in the much later issues, they did like an alternate dimension version of Man-Thing and stuff where he goes back in time, and I'll get into that. But basically, what happened with Man-Thing was he became an entity driven by pure instinct. So basically, how it happens is
So you sort of you're sort of going down like a sort of like The Fly, I guess, is the only thing I can really.
Yeah. Very, 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 very similar to that. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't pretty much based exactly on that. I don't know which came first, actually. Holy smokes.
Worth a Google? You're Googling that right now, aren't you?
I'm thinking The Fly was later. Yeah, I am.
I'm actually curious now.
Yeah. No, Man-Thing was well before The Fly.
Ooh. So
1971 was when Man-Thing first came in. The Fly was 1986.
Jeff Goldblum's early inspiration?
Yeah, perhaps. Very similar in that regard. But basically, there's a few things that are very interesting with the Man-Thing. Like, he's attracted to strong emotions, and this is a very important part of it. So if the emotion is fear, he feels compelled to burn the fear away. The greater the fear, the greater his powers become. And when you touch him, if you're afraid, it burns you, like literally like acid. He has like alien xenomorph sort of acid blood and shit like that.
Yeah, right. So sort of like he's got some telekinesis.
Absolutely, he does. He has so many powers, but he kind of does everything based of instinct. He's just like following his new biological programming. He's neither conscious nor unconscious. He just like is.
I see.
But until like the 90s, where he was reimagined and sent back in time and became the first intelligent species on Earth or something, and now he's sentient, intelligent, can speak, he can travel through time, he can teleport, and it's super weird. But before he did all that, yeah, so Man-Thing in his current form is like super powerful, man. He's like a berserker strength, chemical secretion, claws, cosmic awareness, death touch. He's immortal. He's invulnerable.
Whoa. Just hit the pause button there. Death touch.
If he touches you, you can die straight away.
Cool.
He has life force siphoning, so he can like suck your life, make himself stronger, not unlike a wraith or something from Stargate Atlantis. He's immortal. He has size manipulation, stealth, super strength, telepathy, teleport.
So immortal in the sense that he can't be killed, or immortal in the sense that he's going to live forever?
Both.
Right. So
he's never died once in any comic out of 600 and whatever issues I said.
Right. So he's
never been killed. He just returns. He just is. He's not even until they in that one spin-off where they made him talk and stuff. He was never even really sentient. He just was like.
Sorry, I'm just as you're talking, I'm madly putting together my battle tactics on how I'm going to beat it.
Well, he's just like he's just like gravity or. I don't know, the laws of attraction. He just exists now. And he also protects the nexus of all reality. So this is kind of a big sort of bombshell here. So in the Marvel universe, the nexus of reality is like the weirdest thing. It's mentioned from time to time, but it's not really that big. It's too weird that they haven't really seen it yet. But it's the point in which all realities in the multiverse converge. So it's like every single alternate dimension or whatever that exists in the Marvel universe, which we know is infinite dimensions. You've got the time dimension, speed dimension, blah 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 blah, all these kind of crazy dimensions.
Yep.
They all cross paths at this one particular point, and that's the swamp where Man-Thing is. And he can actually use this apparently to sort of warp people's minds, because he can read minds because he's got telepathy.
So all right. So assuming we're going into multidimensional theory, infinite possibilities, yada yada yada, and at the center of it all is Man-Thing.
Yes.
Well, shit.
But he's discarding the portal to it. He doesn't go in it that often. It's not really a thing. It's like the Force. It's this sort of weird, unexplained thing in the Marvel comics. But yeah, basically, Man-Thing controls the nexus of all reality, bro. But he's, like I said, if you don't fear him and you like calm him down, then he will, like Howard the Duck. He like talks him out of this huge fight once. And he just like goes, okay, back to the swamp. When all things are cool, I'm going back to my swamp. Like, it's just like. But in some other versions of him, you know what comic book law is like, who knows, nothing's canon, everything's canon, who knows.
Yeah.
He's also like, he has this constant screaming inner monologue. He's a super weird and tragic character. So in some comics, he's just like, the pain, the pain is so real, I feel it. Everything I touch burns, and it's just like constantly in screaming, horrific agony.
Existence is pain and agony, and destroy and my love, but now I'm a good guy.
Yeah, because as he went into the pond scum, when he drove his car into the swamp, he just experienced betrayal from his love, and everyone was out to get him, and that's the moment he injected himself with the serum. So his last memory was of betrayal and pain and fear. So when he senses those emotions, he fucking loses his shit. But it's not him like doing it for any purpose. He doesn't. Like I said, it's the weirdest part about this character is he's not out there for some ulterior motive or personal gain or profit.
Do you know?
He just like senses something and his body just reacts accordingly.
There's a myriad of complexities there. I mean, like where the pond scum comes into it, like, you know, where the swamp fits in. I mean, I'm sure that's a metaphor for something that I can't quite put my finger on right now.
He's also looks like swamp. Like he's got tendrils. He's basically supposed to be half plant matter, half man.
Oh yeah, it sounds gross. I mean, I'm literally picturing the fly right now, but with pond scum.
Very similar.
Yeah.
No, it's very accurate how he looks. More like Cthulhu or whatever. You know, he's got like all like Dr. Zoidberg but green.
Why not Zoidberg?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but do you know what? I'm still undecided whether or not he's a villain or a hero. Sounds like he's neither. Sounds like he's neither.
He's neither, but usually the heroes come out on top because when everything's happy, then he's happy. So like in a lot of the comics, he's used to sort of defeat some incredibly powerful foes because he can tackle them while the other guys can find the weakness or whatever, and then, you know, he calms down and he's just like, so everything's peaceful again.
Being at the center of all realities as well, he's kind of like the tip of the scales, I suppose.
Yeah, he's a super weird character. Like, he's very intriguing. I'm definitely going to read more. I've read about 20 of his comics. Like the original ones, and then picked out a few over the years. I think I want to read a lot more, man.
Yeah,
like, some of them are weird.
I am legit intrigued, and quite honestly can't wait to see him in the next Avengers movie.
Man-Thing, dude. If Man-Thing appears in any of the... Maybe he has in the background or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just way out of my league here, because I'm not a comic book reader, really, dude. I've read a few comics when I was a kid, read a few here and there, but I don't know my Marvel at all.
Well, hey, look, you're more versed than I am, and honestly, that sounds like something I want to know more about. And I'll be honest, I'm more of a DC fan, so it turns out. Like, just when we were getting ready to do this little chat, I was like, what about this character? What about that character? I'm like, oh, they're all freaking DC. Shit. But but you know what? That sounds cool. Like, that's actually the sort of thing where potentially the only reason they haven't done a movie on him so far is because of his grotesque appearance, but that means that I love that complexity. Like, I love complex characters. Like, it's all,
you can make him.
It's all well and good, you know, to say like, you know, you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, whatever. And I suppose that's why I like the Punisher, where it's, you know, there's that added level of complexity where you know, it sounds very easy on paper, but realistically, when you start breaking down the layers, and this guy has more layers than, you know, we can accurately describe in the time that we've got.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and just add on the top of that he lives at the center of all realities. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
Especially when realistically, I don't think that it's that far-reaching to think that we wouldn't see him injected into one of these, you know, because we're getting so many, you know, just film.
Well, we got Groot, who's like a big tree monster, and if you look at the early Groot stuff from Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, Groot existed prior to Guardians of the Galaxy. I think we did a Groot episode ages ago on one of these podcasts, but Groot was like from this tree planet. Like, he was a villain back in the day in the old comics. Again, it's like 60s and 70s, and he was just one of those strange tales, whatever, and this tree man came to Earth. It was like, what if trees were alive but aliens? Let's do that.
Could I just ask, are you throwing Groot in as one of your characters?
No. No.
No.
I've got Swamp. I got Man-Thing, dude.
Man-Thing, okay.
This is Jacob from the future, just checking in to let you know we had some technical issues with our recording equipment. We've lost about 20 minutes of audio and conversation, but we're just gonna jump ahead and keep on trucking.
I don't know, dude. I just had some wine. Okay, so we're back to finish this episode. So look, fuck all that, because it's embarrassing. We'll fuck it up. I've got to go into now the famous and new segment, newly famous or famously new, Where's Who Now? That's right. So Where's Who Now is a segment where we look at somebody who may have not been recognised for a previous role and we find out where they are. Do you remember who the last episode was? I know it was like about a month ago since we did it, or 2 months maybe.
Nah, apparently we've had even more technical issues, so we're going to jump ahead about another 5 minutes and continue the pod. Stay tuned.
We had another technicality, apparently. Fucking hell.
Fucking,
right, here we go.
fucking amateurs.
Where's Who Now? Last episode, go.
Yeah, all right, last episode. So, if I remember correctly, and feel free to correct me, it was, and don't for the love of Christ ask me to name the actor's name because I'm not that good, but it was, I'm going to say dude executed by Russian mafia, or dude executed by gangster, words to that effect.
Very close the first time. It was hostage executed by the Russian. Which is played by actor Steve Boyum. In the original 1987 Predator movie.
I think I deserve a 6 out of 10.
Who was a stuntman. And today, I have got another ripper for Where's Who Now. And this ties in very well. I'm going to give you the name. The name of Where's Who Now is Dick Warlock.
Dick Warlock? Are you kidding?
Dick Warlock
That is the best name!
I was going to say it's the best fucking name that's ever been named.
Well, particularly because Dick is short for Richard.
Richard Warlock? Yeah, but he's a Dick Warlock, dude. He's a wizard who knows about dicks and shit, man.
Well,
I mean, Dick Warlock. What's that? What is he? Is he like a tree warlock or a mystic gate elf, man?
No, he's a Dick Warlock.
He's a Dick Warlock.
Dick Warlock.
Dude.
Okay, can I...
And to be honest, this is why I picked this guy.
Can I... Well, because of his name. I would have picked him for his name.
Yeah.
Can I guess the series? Like, can I guess the universe?
Yes.
Alright. I'm not going to say Spider-Man because that's too obvious. I'm not going to say Iron Man because same reason. I don't think he's been in any of the Avengers movies, but I think he's somehow connected to the Avengers movies.
This is an actor's name, by the way.
Yeah, I get that. Right. I get that. But then again, you know, like, the Avengers is connecting to everything these days. So I'm going to go with Captain America.
Nah.
Okay. I give up.
After researching this guy and his filmography, I have to say he's the perfect person for this segment of today's episode. Dick Warlock played the famous role of Man on Roof.
Wow.
Which was uncredited in the 2002 movie Spider-Man.
So I got to...
So Spider-Man was like the first of the new era of superhero movies. It basically kicked off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? I mean, do you remember the original one with Tobey Maguire?
Yeah, oh, who could forget? I mean, they actually...
Wasn't that like the first... It's not the first superhero movie, but it's like... That's the first one that was like, fuck, this is what superhero movies could be, right?
I think it was like the first one that they started making where, you know, the film companies were like, holy days, there is actually money in this. And
yeah,
I mean, he got a lot of flack for Spider-Man 3 because
of course
it was awful, but
1 and 2 were fairly decent.
They were.
2.
I enjoyed them. And say what you like about Tobey Maguire, he did a good job as Peter Parker.
Yeah, it didn't work that it was a 30-year-old man in high school, but all the movies back then, like in the 90s, were like that. It's like, hey, I'm in high school. You're like, dude, you're like 50. Like, what are you doing there? You know what I mean? So, like, that was weird. If he was at university, it would have made more sense. But other than that,
yeah,
dude, he fucking nailed Spider-Man, dude, he killed it, dude.
Oh, easily, yeah. Like I said, it's say what you like about him now, and I know, as I said, a lot of heat from Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 1 and 2 nailed it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. So, Dick Warlock.
Man on Roof.
Yeah. I mean, the Spider-Man movie basically set the trend for the biggest movies ever, I think, in like our pop culture zeitgeist, if you will. I mean, like...
Yeah, X-Men, the Avengers, Iron Man.
You're going from Spider-Man... X-Men was a little bit earlier, actually. So, but
oh, was it?
Yeah, I think so. I think X-Men was earlier. But either way, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where that was owned by Sony, I think, X-Men. So that wasn't even its own thing. Spider-Man is... Actually, Spider-Man's owned by Sony now too. X-Men are owned by Fox. Anyway, I don't know who owns what. Point is, at the time, it was pretty powerful. So this was Dick Warlock's final role.
Final role in the original Spider-Man, and he was Man on Roof. And just to be clear,
was Man on Roof.
Which man on which roof?
So it was. I found it hard. To sort of find his position. So I was running through the movie today. I'm looking at it. Or yesterday or whenever. And I was looking at it, and I got his photos up, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the movie, and I'm seeing, oh, there he is, and he was on the balcony. But I have to say, we sound like total noobs here, okay? Because Dick Warlock is probably known to a lot of people. So Dick Warlock, his most famous role was that of Michael Myers in Halloween 2 and 3.
No way.
Which is why horror buffs would know him. Like, horror guys are going, yeah, of course we know who Dick Warlock is.
Yeah.
Other people...
Fucking fakes, you know? That's just...
Dude,
wow.
It's even crazier than that. Dick Warlock, and this is how ignorant I sound, and I feel weird not knowing his name, because a lot of the guys behind the scenes, they don't get credit unless you're a huge fan. So that's why, like, all we know is actors, you know what I mean? And occasionally we know directors, and we know a few things. But some, like, last guys, like Steve Boyum, man, he was in a ton of movies. We'd never even heard of him as a stuntman. I'm going to tell you what, Dick Warlock is a stuntman. He was Kurt Russell's personal stuntman for over 25 years.
Oh, was he in Stargate?
He has 200... No.
Oh.
But he does have 213 movie credits. Some acting, but mostly stunts. I mean, get a load of this as a little bit of a fucking screenography.
Send.
Soylent Green, $6 Million Man, Freaky Friday, Escape from New York, Halloween, The Thing, Murder, She Wrote, Big Trouble in Little China, Spaceballs, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Casino, and the list goes on and on and on.
Do you know what you had?
213 movies.
You had me at Escape from New York and honestly Big Trouble in Little China, because that is a great movie.
Yeah, it's so good, right? And he finished with Spider-Man 2002. So his final movie was in 2002, and the first movie, in my opinion, to really rocket superheroes into what they are today was Spider-Man 2002.
Well, thank you, Dick Warlock.
So where is Dick Warlock now, you ask? I hear you ask.
Please.
He retired.
Please be filming Big Trouble in Little China 2.
Oh man, as if. That'd be so dope.
I'd enjoy it.
And he's all like, he's still Kurt Russell's stuntman when he's like a million years old. So he retired, right, after Spider-Man. So where's who now? Here's where Dick Warlock is now. He resides in Kingsport, Tennessee. He's 78 years old. He's healthy. He's happy. He has 2 sons and 1 daughter. And he seems to be living the good life.
Well, good.
So this episode of Where's Who Now goes out to Dick Warlock. Epic career for an epic man. Cheers, Dick.
Good on you, Dick.
Shit, dude. Dick Warlock.
Dick
man.
Warlock. That's...
My name's Jakob Brunbauer. What a fucking shit name.
Well,
Jacob.
nah.
It's alright. Jake, maybe. But Dick Warlock.
Do you know what? Yeah, I think you're alright. As long as, you know, you just got to open up a brewery.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose it.
Brunbrauer. I drink it.
Brunbauer?
Yeah. Brunbrau.
Yeah. Brunbrow.
Brunbrau.
Brunbrew.
Bronbrew.
Yeah.
Either way, I drink it.
Yeah, well,
I would
what
I
are
would
you doing there?
I would drink your fluids, Jake.
Oh, thanks, man. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Mostly Science and Fiction.
Oh,
Final thoughts?
I actually do have another interesting fact.
Oh, good. Start and finish. I like that, like bookends.
Yeah, sorry. No, this is a good one, though. And it's probably the only opportunity I'll get to drop it. However, since we were talking about Spider-Man, or Spider-Man 2 specifically, Dr. Otto Octavius in Spider-Man 2, played by Alfred Molina. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, some of you may recognize that particular actor from a lesser-known role in one of the original Indiana Jones movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark specifically. So if you cast your mind back to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where, you know, Indiana Jones, he's freaking walking through the jungle and he, you know, he gets portrayed by that dude who gets all the pins in his back and, you know, dies and whatever. And he enters the temple with the one guide that, you know, doesn't betray him, at least not at first. And you remember him as the dude who has all the tarantulas over his back?
Yeah.
That is Alfred Molina.
Really?
Yeah, true story.
Who played Dr. Otto in Dr. Octopus?
Yeah, that was one of his
Spider-Man 2.
One of his very, very early film roles.
Oh, that really ties in well with our fun fact of the day, our theme, and our Where's Who Now episode. Well done, Fads. And you didn't even know who my Where's Who Now was going to be.
Yeah, we're making a habit of this.
Man, that's pretty good.
Everything comes full circle.
I am Jacob Exby Brumbauer.
I am Fadzy. I need a better closing statement.
You need a better. I've got a closing statement.
This has been Fadzy.
So,
I am Fads Poffis.
Fads Poffis. Brutal.
Do you know what? I'm owning it. Fads Poffis. It's a thing.
Well,
I'm making t-shirts.
I'm not doing it, man.
Belt buckles. Belt buckles. Put it in.
Fads Poffis.
Fads Poffis.
Fine.
All right, fine. Do you want just a generic And I'm Fadzy.
I'm gonna scrap all that, or maybe I won't. I don't know.
You got a bunch to
But
pick from there.
All I'm saying is, this is the end of Mostly Science and Fiction for today. I'm Jacob. You can follow me on YouTube. You're trying to bloody.
You fucking.
Nah, fuck it. Follow me on YouTube /Jake's Place. Now, what I do want to do though, Fadzy.
Okay.
Okay, looks like you want to say something. Say something, Fadzy. Go on.
Fad's Porfies.
There we go. I want to leave you, Fadzy and listeners, with another quote from the great late Stan Lee. You know my.
Oh shit.
Okay, say your thing. Go.
No.
Go on. You're gonna try. I'm trying to do like a cool voice and shit. Like,
Yeah.
No. Say your thing. Go
With
on.
great power comes great responsibility.
That's bullshit, though. It does, but no one takes. I mean, look at the world. No. What Stan Lee? The quote I wanted to say, because I thought it was gonna be like cool. I was gonna do like a Neil deGrasse Tyson thing where he like finishes off his fucking thing with a cool quote. So now you've ruined it. So I'm just gonna say it.
Fad's Porfies.
You know, my motto is Excelsior. That's an old word that means upward and onward to greater glory. It's on the seal of the state of New York. Keep moving forward. And if it's time to go, it's time. Nothing lasts forever.
So true.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Stan Lee, for your fucking shit, even though you can't hear me because you're dead. Or, Fadzy, do you believe in heaven?
I believe in.
See you next week, everyone.
If you like this music, you can check out my band, My First Death Ray. Also, you can follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that stuff. Yes. Yes, you can.